Have you ever walked into a place and felt different? Not because anything happened, not because someone told you it was special, but because the air felt heavier. A forest path suddenly goes quiet. A ruined building makes you lower your voice. A mountain makes you feel small in a way that is almost religious. A cave makes you feel like you should not be the first one to speak. And here's the strange part. Ancient humans did not think that feeling was just a feeling. They thought the place itself had power. A spring could heal you, a mountain could judge you, a cave could connect you to the dead, a grove could belong to a spirit, a stone circle could hold the sky in place. And for most of human history, this was not considered weird. What is weird is that we stopped believing it. Or maybe we only think we stopped. Because even today, we still say things like, this place has bad energy, or that house feels warm, or there's something sacred about this landscape. So the real question is not, why were ancient people so superstitious? The better question is, what did they notice about places that we've forgotten how to see? Imagine you are one of the earliest humans. You do not have a map. You do not have a weather app. You do not have a calendar hanging on a wall telling you when the seasons will change. Your world is not made of countries, street names, and GPS pins. Your world is made of places that matter. The bend in the river where fish always return. The cliff where lightning struck 3 times. The cave where your grandparents were buried. The hill where the sun appears after the longest night. The spring that never dries even when everything else does. To us, these are locations. To them, these were living memories. Because if you were an ancient human, survival depends on remembering the land. Where is the water? Where do animals migrate? Where do storms gather? Where did someone die? Where did the tribe once survive a famine? Where did the world seem to speak? Now here is where things get interesting. The more important a place becomes to survival, the more emotionally charged it becomes. And the more emotionally charged it becomes, the easier it is to remember. So, a dangerous cliff is not just a cliff. It becomes the cliff where the spirit is angry. A spring that saves your people during drought is not just a spring. It becomes the spring that gives life. A cave filled with darkness, echoes, bones, and strange paintings is not just a cave. It becomes an entrance to another world, and once a place becomes tied to fear, gratitude, death, food, birth, or mystery, it begins to feel powerful. Now picture this. It is around 11,000 years ago. Before cities, before writing, before metal tools, before the pyramids, groups of hunter-gatherers gather on a hill in what is now southeastern Turkey. And on that hill, they build something enormous. Massive T-shaped limestone pillars, some carved with animals, some standing taller than a person, arranged in circular enclosures. Today, we call this place Göbekli Tepe. And what makes it so fascinating is not just that it is old, it is that people built monumental structures before farming was fully established in that region. That should make us pause. Because for a long time, people assumed the order went like this. First, humans learned to farm. Then they settled down. Then they built villages. Then they had enough free time to build temples. But Göbekli Tepe complicates that. It suggests that belief, ritual, and powerful places may have helped gather people together before. Civilization looked the way we expect. In other words, maybe humans did not build sacred places after they became organized. Maybe sacred places helped them become organized. That is a huge idea because it means powerful places were not just decorations in ancient life. They may have been engines of human cooperation. A place could pull scattered groups together. A place could give people a shared story. A place could turn strangers into us. And once a place does that, it becomes more than stone. It becomes a center. But why would a specific place feel chosen? Why this hill? Why that cave? Why that spring? Part of the answer is that ancient humans lived in a world where landscape and story were inseparable. Today, we often separate fact from meaning. A mountain is geology, a river is hydrology, a forest is ecology, a cave is archaeology. But ancient people often experienced these things as relationships. A mountain was not just a pile of rock, it was the place where clouds gathered, the place where storms were born, the place that could be seen from miles away, the place closer to the sky than anything else. A river was not just moving water, it was the thing that fed animals, crops, fish, trees, and humans. It gave life, but it could also flood and destroy. A cave was not just an opening in the earth, it was a mouth, a womb, a grave, a place where sound changed, a place where light disappeared, a place where humans could enter the body of the earth and come back out again. Ancient people were not stupid for seeing meaning in that. They were responding to environments that genuinely shaped their lives. The land was not background. The land was the main character. This is one reason animism appears in so many human cultures. Animism is the idea that animals, plants, rocks, rivers, mountains, storms, and places can possess spirit, agency, or personhood. That does not always mean people believed every rock was secretly thinking like a human. It means they did not draw the same hard line we often draw between alive and not alive, or between nature and person. A river could act, a storm could punish, a tree could shelter, a mountain could watch. And in a world where your survival depends on reading signs in the environment, treating the world as alive is not irrational. It may actually make you pay better attention. Think about it. If you believe a forest is just a pile of resources you might take without thinking, but if you believe the forest has a spirit, rules, memory, or guardians, you behave differently. You enter carefully. You ask permission. You pass down warnings. You create rituals that control when, where, and how people use the land. A sacred place is not only a belief, it is also a social technology. It tells people, do not hunt here. Do not cut these trees. Do not enter this cave casually. Do not pollute this water. Do not forget what happened here. The spirit of the place becomes a way of protecting the place, and the place protects the people in return. Now jump forward thousands of years. We arrive in prehistoric Britain. Stonehenge rises out of a landscape filled with burial mounds, avenues, earthworks, and other monuments. Today, tourists see a stone circle, but ancient people did not experience Stonehenge as an isolated attraction. It was part of a wider ceremonial landscape. The power was not only in the stones, it was in the alignment, the journey, the horizon, the dead buried nearby, the seasonal gatherings, the way the sun moved through the architecture at key moments of the year. And this matters because ancient, powerful places often did something very important. They turned time into something you could stand inside. The solstice is not easy to hold in your hand. The cycle of death and rebirth is not easy to see all at once. The movement of the sun across the year is too slow for a single moment. But build a monument in the right place, aligned in the right way, and suddenly the invisible becomes visible. The sky touches the earth, time becomes architecture. A cosmic pattern becomes a human gathering place. That is power. Not power like electricity, power like meaning, power like order, power like we are not lost, we know where we are in the universe. The Romans had a phrase that captures this beautifully: genius loci, the spirit of a place. To the Romans, certain places had a kind of guardian presence. A location had its own character, its own force, its own identity. And even though many people today use spirit of place metaphorically, the older idea was much more literal. A place was not empty until humans arrived. A place already had something there, a presence, a personality, a power that needed to be respected, This is a major difference between many ancient worldviews and the modern one. Modern people often ask, "What can I do with this place?" Ancient people were more likely to ask, "What does this place require of me?" That question changes everything because it means the human is not always the owner. Sometimes the human is the guest, and you can see similar thinking in many indigenous traditions around the world. In many Aboriginal Australian cultures, for example, sacred sites are not simply religious locations in the modern sense. They are tied to ancestral beings, law, kinship, ceremony, identity, and story. The land itself holds knowledge. A place can be powerful because an ancestral event happened there, or because a story is embedded in that landscape. That means the place is not just remembered, it remembers. The story is not only told about the land, the story is in the land. A hill, waterhole, rock formation, or path can function like a living archive. And that idea may sound strange if you come from a culture that stores knowledge in books, servers, and documents. But for cultures without writing, landscape can become the library. Every place is a chapter. Every journey is a reading. Every ceremony is a way of keeping the text alive. So, when ancient people believed places had power, they were often doing several things at once. They were explaining mystery. They were protecting resources. They were remembering danger. They were honoring the dead. They were organizing communities. They were mapping time. They were turning survival knowledge into story. And story is the key, because a fact is easy to forget. But a story attached to a place can survive 4 generations. Do not go into that cave because the spirit inside takes children. Maybe that began as a warning about toxic gases, predators, unstable rock, or people getting lost. Do not drink from that pool because it belongs to the dead. Maybe that protected a contaminated water source. Do not cut trees in that grove because the gods live there. Maybe that preserved shade, biodiversity, food sources, or ritual space. The belief and the practical function do not cancel each other out. They reinforce each other. That is the mistake modern people often make. We ask, was it spiritual or was it practical? For ancient humans, it could be both. The sacred was practical. The practical was sacred. And now we get to the uncomfortable part. We like to imagine that modern people are completely different. We say, ancient humans believed places had power because they didn't understand science. But look at how we behave. We visit battlefields and whisper. We preserve childhood homes of famous people. We travel across the world to stand in temples, ruins, cathedrals, stadiums, grave sites, and national monuments. We say a room has bad vibes. We say a city has a soul. We say a house feels haunted even when we do not believe in ghosts. We keep ashes in special places. We return to locations where our lives changed. We take photos at landmarks to prove we were there, as if proximity transfers meaning. So maybe the belief never vanished. Maybe it just changed language. Ancient people said, "This place has a spirit." Modern people say, "This place has atmosphere." Ancient people said, "The mountain is sacred." Modern people say, "The view puts life in perspective." Ancient people said, "The ancestors are here." Modern people say, "I feel connected to something bigger than myself." Different vocabulary, same human nervous system. Because places do affect us. A cathedral ceiling can make you feel awe. A dark alley can make you alert. A forest can calm your breathing. A battlefield can make history feel physical. A childhood street can bring back memories you thought were gone. The human brain does not experience place as neutral data. It experiences place through emotion, memory, danger, beauty, and story. And ancient humans understood that deeply. Maybe not with neuroscience, but with attention. They noticed that some places changed people. Some places gathered people. Some places frightened people. Some places healed grief. Some places made the invisible feel close. And when a place repeatedly produces a powerful human response, it is not surprising that people begin to say, there is something here. So, why did ancient humans believe places had power? Because places did have power. Not always supernatural power in the way we might imagine, but emotional power, social power, ecological power, memory power, story power. A powerful place could tell a community who they were. It could warn them. It could unite them. It could protect land. It could turn the sky into a calendar. It could make grief bearable. It could make survival meaningful. And maybe that is what ancient sacred places really reveal. Not that our ancestors were foolish, but that they lived in a world that was alive with attention. They did not walk across landscapes as if the earth was empty. They walked through places filled with memory. And maybe, in our world of maps, screens, roads, and constant noise, we have not become too smart to believe in powerful places. Maybe we have just become too distracted to notice them. So, the next time you enter a forest, a ruin, a mountain path, an old church, a cave, or even a street from your childhood, pause. Listen. Ask yourself, is this place empty, or has it been speaking the whole time? And if this video changed the way you think about ancient humans, watch the next one, because we are going to explore why nearly every ancient civilization built monuments to the sky and what they were really trying to reach.